girlfriend, where we're going to be building my son a floating nightstand.
In this nightstand, we're gonna have a shelf that's gonna go right about here, and that's gonna be for him to put like a little lamp or something on top of, and maybe even his charger for his phone. And then right in this square, it's gonna be a 6-inch drawer for him to put anything else that he may need to put in his nightstand.
So, let's get started.
The first step is to measure and plan out the size of the nightstand. It helps to draw it out or put tape on the wall to actually see what your measurements are going to be. And so for our nightstand, it can only be 14 inches wide. So this nightstand will be 14 inches wide by 14 inches long by 10 inches in height. When planning your measurements, make sure to allow for the width of the wood and the drawer slides. So here we go. Now we need to measure and cut the nightstand base pieces. And we're not going to worry about cutting the drawer pieces yet. For the top shelf and the top of the drawer area of the nightstand, we are using 1-inch cabinet grade plywood. The length and the width of the top shelf will be 14 by 14 inches. And for the top of the drawer area, that shelf in the middle, will be 13¼ by 13¼ inches, and the middle shelf is smaller so the outside edges are flush with the rest of the nightstand. The next step is to measure and cut the bottom of the nightstand out of 1/4-inch plywood. For this step, we'll measure and mark the length and width needed on the plywood and cut to the dimensions on the table saw. Our measurements are 13 1/8 inches wide by 14 inches long. The 13 1/8 inches wide allows for the dado groove that we will show you how to do later in the video. Next, we're going to mark and cut the back end sides of the nightstand out of a 1 by 10 by 4 foot piece of wood. The measurements for our back piece are 10 by 13¼ inches long, and then the measurements for our left side piece are 10 by 14 inches long. You'll also need to measure and cut the 6-inch right side of the nightstand, and our measurements for the right side are 6 by 14 inches long. And we are using a 1 by 6 wood board for the right side piece. A helpful tip whenever you're cutting the wood is to cut on whichever side you'd like to be the back so that the front side will have a smooth finish. Next, we need to cut the dado groove inserts. To do this, you'll use a combination height gauge tool to raise the saw blade 1/8 inch above the table. You'll want to cut the dado groove insert at the very bottom flush with the edge of the 1 by 10 side panel and the 1 by 6 side panel. This will later be used to glue and brad nail the nightstand bottom to the sides. Next, we're going to assemble the nightstand base together. So the first thing you'll want to do is use wood glue and clamps to glue the 1 by 10 inch side to the 1 by 10 inch back, making sure that the side covers the back edge for a nice finish. Be sure that all the sides are flush and the corners are square. After that, you can brad nail the sides together using 2-inch brad nails. You'll repeat this same process to attach the 1 by 6 inch side to the 1 by 10 inch back. Make sure that everything is flush and then brad nail the pieces together. You can use your bottom piece of plywood as a reference to make sure that everything is perfectly lined up. Next, we'll insert the bottom piece into the dado grooves that we made in the 1 by 10 and the 1 by 6 side pieces earlier, and the dado groove will hide the rough edges on the side. Secure the bottom to the sides using the 2-inch brad nails. Now that the nightstand frame is made, you can determine the size of the drawer. You'll want to measure the inside of the drawer frame width. Then you'll subtract out the width of the drawer slides from the drawer width to determine how wide the drawer can be. The slides are usually 1/2 inch each for a total of 1 inch. So then you'll want to cut 2 1 by 4 pieces of wood according to the width determined. And you'll want to cut 2 pieces for the front and the back. Our front and back pieces will be 10 inches long. You'll also need to measure the inside of the drawer frame length from front to back and then subtract out the width of the back and front pieces of wood, which is usually 3/4 of an inch each, and this will determine how deep the drawer can be. Then you'll need to cut 2 1x4 pieces of wood according to the length determined. Cut 2 pieces for both sides. Our side pieces are 11.5 inches long. Next, we need to cut the dado groove inserts for the drawer bottom. To do this, you'll measure 1/4 inch from the bottom of all 4 drawer sides and cut an 1/8 inch dado groove insert using a table saw. The typical width of a saw blade is an 1/8 inch, so usually one cut will work. For the bottom of the drawer, we're going to be using 1/8 inch plywood. So to make sure that your groove is wide enough, you can take that plywood and slide it into the groove. And if it's not wide enough, then you can make another cut on the table saw. Next, we're going to glue and brad nail the back and sides of the drawer together using clamps for support. And at this point, we're not going to attach the front of the drawer yet. Now we need to cut the drawer bottom out of our 1/8 inch plywood. To do that, measure the length and width needed for the drawer bottom, making sure to factor in the depth of the 1/8 inch dado grooves that we created on the other pieces of the drawer. After that, you'll glue and insert the drawer bottom into the dado grooves of all 3 sides. Once you've inserted the bottom, you can glue and brad nail the front of the drawer to the sides. The next step is to sand and stain. We recommend sanding and staining at this point before we assemble the entire nightstand, because otherwise it might be difficult to get to some places. For a more finished look, fill in all brad nail, countersunk screws, gaps, and imperfections with stainable wood fill and allow that to dry before sanding. You'll want to sand the nightstand base, drawer, and shelves with 110 grit sandpaper until it's smooth. Then you can switch to 220 grit sandpaper to finish. Also, make sure and sand with the grain of the wood and wipe off any remaining sawdust. After sanding, it's time to stain or paint your nightstand pieces. Make sure to allow your stain or paint to dry according to the directions, and then once it's dry, lightly sand down with steel wool to avoid scratching, and then you can apply a second coat if needed. Once your stain or paint is dry, apply polyurethane to the nightstand pieces, and make sure to allow it to dry according to the directions on the can. And then once the polyurethane dries, lightly sand down any rough spots with steel wool and then wipe off any remaining sawdust. Next, we're going to attach the drawer slides according to the manufacturer's directions. To do this, you'll want to attach the corresponding drawer slides to the right and left sides of the drawer. For easier installation, you'll want to turn the drawer upside down. You'll also need to attach the corresponding drawer slides to the inside of the nightstand. And usually the drawer slides that attach to the side supports need to be about 1/4 inch from the bottom of the support. So to help do this, you can use a 1/4 inch thick paint stick to support the slide while installing. Also, make sure to use a level to ensure that the slide is level. Now that our drawer is secure and in place, it's time to attach the middle shelf. Using a level, position the middle shelf on the nightstand base with the 1x6 side being the support. You can use paint sticks as a support on the left side to help level the shelf. Measure where the middle shelf will attach to the 1x10 inch side and then make a mark there. This will be where you will brad nail the shelf to secure it. Make sure the shelf is level and then apply liquid nail to the top of the 1x6 side support and the sides of the middle shelf that will attach to the 1x10 sides. Then you can use brad nails to secure the middle shelf to the 1x10 side and the 1x6 support. Now it's time to attach the top shelf. So you'll first want to apply liquid nail to the 1x10 support boards, the back and the side board that will be supporting the top shelf. Make sure that your shelf is level and flush with the sides, and then you can brad nail the top shelf to the 1x10 side supports, and then clean off any excess glue. While the glue is drying, use some type of support for the corner that is unsupported to ensure that it dries level, and also clamp the corners and then allow the glue to dry according to the directions. Before hanging the nightstand, you'll need to measure and cut the drawer facing. The drawer facing will need to cover the drawer plus the edges of the nightstand frame for a clean look. Our drawer facing was 14 inches wide by 5.5 inches tall to make it flush on all sides. And for this step, we are using a 1x6 piece of wood. Once your facing piece is cut, you can go ahead and sand and stain or paint the wood. But keep in mind that before attaching the facing to the drawer, you will have to sand down the front of the drawer and the back of the facing in order for the glue to stick. The next step is to determine where you want the nightstand on the wall. It is best if at least one side is mounted to a stud, if at all possible. It's ideal if both sides can be mounted to studs for extra support. Things that are heavy, like our floating nightstand, need to either be anchored to a stud in the wall or hung with wall anchors to support the weight and not damage the sheetrock on the wall. So in our case, we're going to anchor the left side to a stud and the right side using wall anchors. Measure the wall to determine how high you want the nightstand to be. Position the brackets on the nightstand where they will be attached and measure the distance between the brackets and the distance from the bottom of the nightstand. Using a level, mark the wall vertically and horizontally according to your measurements. Make sure to take the drawer out of the nightstand so that you can attach it to the wall. After that, you'll want to position the support brackets on the back of the nightstand and measure how far apart the brackets and holes will be. Mark the wall accordingly, making sure the horizontal marks are level so that the nightstand will be level. On the side that is using wall anchors, screw in the wall anchors to the wall according to the marks. Now you'll want to attach the support brackets to the wall using the appropriate length screws for the wall brackets. Use a washer to ensure that the screw doesn't go through the wall bracket hole over time. And also make sure that the bracket remains level. If not, adjust the bracket with a hammer. On the side of the nightstand that will be mounted to the stud, attach an angle wall bracket to the bottom of the nightstand using 3/4 inch screws, washer, and nuts. Secure it in at least 2 or 3 places. Make sure that the wall bracket is straight and pre-drill holes in the back of the nightstand to use when attaching the nightstand to the wall stud. We only did this where the drawer would hide the screws, but you'll want to make sure to pre-drill at least 2 holes. Next, you'll want to place the nightstand on the bracket that is attached to the wall with anchors for support. If you are doing this by yourself, it's definitely helpful to use that angled bracket to support the right side of the nightstand and then prop up the left side with something of the same height. When doing this, use your level to make sure that both sides of the nightstand are level before you secure the nightstand to the wall. Then you can attach the stud side of the nightstand by drilling 4-inch wood screws into the wall stud using the pre-drilled holes. Now you'll just need to secure the bottom of the nightstand to the wall bracket, once again using 3/4 inch screws, washer, and nuts. Note to never attach a floating nightstand to sheetrock only. The nightstand is too heavy and will tear the sheetrock and eventually fall. Either secure to the wall studs or use heavy-duty wall anchors. Now it's time to attach the drawer facing. Remember that if the front of the drawer and or the back of the drawer facing has been painted or stained, you will need to sand them so that the glue can bond with the wood. Using liquid nail, you'll want to attach the drawer facing to the front of the drawer and clamp for support. Allow the glue to dry according to the manufacturer's instructions. Once the glue is dry, you can measure and attach the drawer handle. Make sure the screws you are using are long enough to go through the 3/4 inch drawer front and the 3/4 inch drawer facing plus into the handle. Open and close the drawer using the drawer handle several times to make sure that the slides are working properly and that the handle is securely attached. Once you have your handle attached, it's optional to fill any brad nail holes or imperfections with spackling or wood filler and allow that to dry. And then once it's dry, if you want to, you can touch up any paint or stain imperfections that you might have, and then your nightstand is finished.